Blue. She's a ham. Welcome here. Got another fly pattern for you. This one is a Blue Winged Olive Fly Pattern. It's one that I just kind of threw together recently, and it's been working really well here on the Truckee. And yeah, I'm going to share how to make it and what we make it with, and get out there and fish it on your water right here on the Truckee too. So proven winner here. My name's Dave. I'm the owner and guide at Current Fly Fishing here in Reno, Nevada. And this is Blue. You can probably see her. Hello, Blue. Yeah, you have to make an appearance in every video. Yes, you do. All right, so let's get started.
Artlist
Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is put some wraps on the body here, starting at the bead and wrapping our way down the hook shank here. Using that tag end right here, I find that that's helpful to use this tag end to kind of guide those wraps down onto the hook shank. Just some pro tips if you're just starting out fly tying. This is a pretty easy pattern to tie, but there's a lot of little tricks to this, just like anything in fly fishing, that really help make the overall experience a little easier. Whenever you're tying these flies that are, thin bodied, they're meant to be pretty thin and small. It's important the size thread you use. We're using a pretty small thread. Of course, we got to be careful with how hard we pull on it. But, it really matters how many wraps you're going to put on there. And let's see if I can get a better view of it. If you start to put maybe one or two on top of each other, you're going to get a bump, and that's going to look kind of weird. Looks pretty good the way it is right now. We'll go ahead and get our tailing fibers ready here. So this is that Coq de Leon tailing fiber. Some patterns I'll get real picky and do, I've got to have 3. It's a mayfly. BWOs, ones I've seen on the Truckee at least, they have 2 very distinct tails as an adult fly. As a nymph, they do have 3. So we're tying something that's kind of in between that stage. We're going to grab a little clump. There may be a few fibers in that clump, but that should be fine. We're not going to try to separate them out or make them kind of fork out on the hook. That's not the goal here. Just a little bit of tailing fibers. When adding these, you don't want the tail to be any longer than the body. So you kind of pull it up close to, where the bead is, measure that, kind of eyeball it. They look a little funky if you have too long of a tail. So tying that in, kind of going over top and grabbing it. Okay, so I did 2 wraps there. There's 3 wraps working back towards the front. So we don't want to go back and forth over the fly too many times. Again, don't want to build up too much of a thread body. So what we're going to do is trim that. And I trimmed the Coq de Leon tailing fibers close to that bead. That way it's an even, smooth taper when we wrap over it. Before we wrap over it, we're going to add our green wire, our olive green small wire here, and we're going to try to capture that right there, making sure that we don't have any of those CDC fibers kind of sticking out all over the place. Everything needs to be nice and tight, wrapped in there together. I try to lay the wire right on top of the hook shank, and that gives it a nice even profile as well. We're going to take that all the way almost up to the bead. We're going to stop right there. We're going to give it a little bit of room because we're adding that CDC puff for kind of a soft hackle style wrap around the top of the fly, kind of that guide's choice kind of style. We're going to leave a little bit of room there because we're going to need to operate with some more thread up there in a little bit. So stopping there and wrapping the body back, trying to lay each one on top of each other. Whenever what is it, 1, 2, 3, you're really going to go over the fly maybe 3 or 4 times here. So making sure that there's no gaps in there, but making sure it's also not overlapping too much. Coming through and taking our time to make that look nice and clean. Now the wire was wrapped up ahead, just slightly ahead of the tail. You see that there, just in the order that we laid it on. So now we're going to kind of bring that back all the way to that final wrap, just about there. And then we're going to make our way back towards the front of the fly. Again, same thing. We're going to try not to miss any here, making a nice clean profile. Less is more with a lot of these nymph style flies. Okay, so we've got the wire tied in, we've got the tailing fibers on. See, we're kind of building things backwards. So now we're gonna wrap our thread, you know, and you can use the rotary feature on a vise if you have it, but a lot of times I like to just do this by hand because it can get a little more control over exactly where that wire lands and how many wraps you can get on there. You're not going to have a whole lot. You do want to leave a gap here between the wire. Part of the reason I feel like this fly works so well, it really imitates the color of the body, that grayish, greenish, bluish hue that you get. I think it's the combination of that green and gray kind of throw out kind of a bluish color. When it's all said and done, it's a pretty good imitation, but leaving enough room between the wire wraps allows that gray color to kind of shine through. Okay, so we've tied our wire down, we twisted to break that wire, and now we're good to go there. Now we need a little bit of dubbing. We're going to make kind of that thorax shape on the fly, and man, with this stuff, it is so little goes a long way. You can see just the tiniest bit. You know, no need for a dubbing loop on a fly this size for this particular application. We will use a little dubbing loop when it comes to the CDC, but I'm just putting this on here and just, you can see I'm just rolling my fingers. Sometimes it helps to put a little saliva on tips of your fingers, and that helps kind of get the material down there. But I'm just kind of rolling it onto the thread, making sure I get any errant fibers that are sticking out. And I'm just going to slide that right up there. And I want to position this so that I still have a little bit of room behind that bead. So I'm going to come around, wrap it over top here, just like that. Now coming down to the bead right here, we still have that little gap, and that's good. That's what we want. You know, when I started tying this pattern, I started using some UV resin to cover that body. But what I found is with this lighter color threads, and this is true on a lot of little flies, Euro style flies, when you add that UV resin, it darkens the color of the fly. So I wanted to retain that lighter color. Sure, it probably gets darker when it hits the water too, but I didn't want to make it any darker than we wanted it to be. So going without the resin here, so not doing the UV resin on this one. I think it holds together just fine. And if the fish is, you know, tearing up the fly, that's why we tie a lot of them, and that's a good problem to have. So no resin there. Okay, we're going to come through now with a oiler puff. One of these, find the camera here, CDC guys. You can see that they're just like little, they just plucked them right out of the bird. I don't know. The bird probably had a worse time than that. But there it is. CDC is a great material. It's naturally hydrophobic, and it traps a lot of little bubbles within those fibers. Looks really good. So we are going to make a dubbing loop here, and I'm going to see if I can back the camera out so you can get a full angle on that. But we're going to use a little dubbing spinner tool, and let's see. Maybe that'll give us enough room. Yeah. Okay, so grabbing that thread with my finger, bringing it around, going right behind the bead, once around, and then I like to wrap around the dubbing loop twice, and then back over the hook. And so that kind of secures it in place. And you can see we've got this loop of line sticking out. I'm going to let the bobbin dangle there. I'm going to grab with this little tool here. This thing's kind of nice. It's kind of heavy, that bolt looking part. It's got some weight to it, so it kind of holds the loop nice and tight. I'm going to come in here with the oiler puff, And I'm going to place that fairly close. We can afford to put a couple wraps behind that bead without getting too bulky. So no need to bring it all the way up to the fly. But I'm looking at the distance of those fibers, those feathers on the CDC and the length of the fly. I don't want them extending too much further past the body, covering the tail. That's not ideal. Everything needs to be kind of proportional. Now I took my finger out of that loop as I placed these in here, and you can see that just the tension of me lightly pulling on this dubbing loop spinner is enough to kind of hold them in place. Now here's the real delicate part. I mean, nice if I'm right-handed, so if I could flip this around, let's see if we can do it. It's not going to want to do it for us. So I'm coming in here with the scissors, and I want to trim off the upper part of this, and I want to get nice and close to that thread, but not too close. And you can see there, it's where it really helps to have some nice sharp scissors. But now we've got these fibers that are just trapped in this dubbing loop, and that's what we want. Try to adjust them without pulling them out. You got to be real delicate when they're just free floating there. And now the fun part, we're going to give the dubbing tool a spin. Being that it's all weighted, it's kind of like a top. It likes to spin a lot. Now if I release that from my finger, you can watch the thread will spin and take up the fibers within that spin. So now they're on there, and they're all kind of sporadic, but that's okay. So we're gonna take the dubbing tool still attached, light amount of tension on there, and we're gonna wrap it. And just for purposes, no, we'll go ahead and just wrap it like this. Just looking out for my bobbin. You can use the rotary feature here. I would just probably put a little whip finish knot in the thread and then throw it over the bobbin holder. It kind of goes out to the side, but this will work just fine. I'm going to use my fingers to try to pull back some of these CDC fibers as I'm wrapping this, just to get that nice clean look. That's about it. So I'm through the fibers on that dubbing loop. And at this point, I'll zoom back in. I'm going to take this dubbing tool right here off to the side, and I'm going to come over the top with the bobbin and thread and capture the end of that dubbing loop. Twice, there's three. I'm come in here very carefully. Don't cut your main thread, because then you got to back up quite a few steps, and that's inconvenient. Just going to trim that right there. Doesn't need to be microscopic close. It's okay if there's a little hanging out. Come in here, pull back some of these fibers. Watch your fingers on those hooks. Many hooks in my hand that way. And I'm going to put a few more wraps of the thread behind the bead just to kind of build the taper, but also help force those fibers back over that dubbing thorax that we created. That's going to help those fibers kind of push out and kind of expand. Now imagine when this thing's wet, it's going to get real slender and kind of taper down and kind of cover the fly in a veil of grayish bubbles. It's kind of a cool look when it's underwater, but that's pretty much it. To seal this fly off, we're going to use a little bit of Zap-A-Gap. Pro tip on applying this stuff, because it can get messy really quick. I'm just going to take a little bit through the applicator here, just the smallest amount out the tip. Instead of going right to the fly, just going to put a little bit on the thread, and I mean just a little bit. You can see that there's just a couple beads of it. See beading up on the thread itself. Take that, wrap it, try not to touch the fibers with it. Once it's all on there, I'm going to come in and do a whip finish, and I'll just use my fingers here. The whip finish tool is fun too, but try to keep my hands on the thread. Okay, put a couple whippers in there, and what'll happen, that glue will dry, and that's really what's holding it together. The knots are really just there to hold the fly in place until that glue dries. So there it is. So there's our little Blue Winged Olive, kind of gray and green CDC. I guess you could call it the Guide's Choice Blue Winged Olive nymph, tungsten bead, size 16. things been working pretty good. This is a great bug, and should continue to be a great bug on the Truckee all the way, mid-October all the way through the winter. So if they're not rising, but they're moving on them, they're eating them, this is a hot ticket for sure. Let's do this. Kind of put a little spit on there. You can see how these fibers kind of act as they get wet. They kind of fold down over the whole fly and creates this cool little veil around the fly, and that's neat. And I also tie them without the CDC, just the dubbing, and then you kind of bring the dubbing all the way up to the bead. But both work. This one I'm running low on, so that's the one we're doing today. All right, so that's the fly. Hope you enjoy it. Tie a few, go out and use them on your local water. This is the time of year for them, so have fun. All right, so that's it. That's our Blue Winged Olive Mayfly, kind of emerger style, the CDC wrap on it. Hope you guys find the video useful, helpful. Hope you can get out and fish the pattern soon. Hope it works for you. It's a proven winner out here, so hopefully it is on your water too. Keep an eye out for more fly time videos. We're going to put some more out here and see if we can get some of the patterns that we use here on the Truckee and stuff I'm filling my box with out there, and get it into people's hands, into the vise, and onto the water. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.